Hello and thank you for joining me today for day 18 of Creep on June 2025, hosted by Tracie Fox. Now obviously yesterday I did a bit of the game, didn't I? So that was on this next page, so that's why you can see that there, just because this is a bit of a shorter page that I've used today. So day 18. And so all the night tide I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in her sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the side of the sea. And that is some more from Annabel Lee. I didn't mean for that last bit to rhyme, but that is some more from Annabel Lee. So today, Edgar awakes to a knock at the door. He opens it and there's a note. It says, "Edgar, please will you accompany me today at my mother's funeral? Meet me at the church at 10 a.m. Alice." Edgar feels conflicted. On one hand, he is so touched at the thought that Alice would like him there to support her through this hard time. But on the other hand, this feels all too similar to when he had to bury his beloved wife. He decides, though, that this is far more important than his feelings and Alice needs him. He doesn't have much to wear, though, but he wanders down to the kitchen and asks tentatively if anyone has a hat or anything that he can borrow to look a little bit smart. As luck would have it, someone says that there is a hat in the back room. They go and get it and it's ideal. Edgar is ever so grateful, then he finishes getting ready. He remembers seeing the church, so heads over there in time for Alice's arrival. He waits and then hears the clip-clopping of a horse pulling the coffin in a hearse-like cart, with the undertaker leading the horses to the church and the procession following behind. Alice and Edgar presumes her father are directly behind the hearse, and then Alice's aunt and lots of people walking behind. There's a few people already at the church too, waiting outside, hats in hand, heads down. The horses stop, the procession break out, and Alice sees Edgar, and Edgar just thinks how pale she looks. It's so much for her to have to deal with. She introduces her father to Edgar, who shakes his hand. Edgar says how deeply sorry he is for their loss. Alice tells Edgar to come into the church with them and sit with them. The service is beautiful, with white flowers everywhere. They go round to the churchyard where Alice's mother Mary is laid to rest. As the coffin is being lowered into the ground, Edgar thinks about Virginia and where she was laid to rest in her tomb by the sea. Alice thanks Edgar for coming and asks if he would like to come to the pub for the wake afterwards. He worries he's imposing, and her father cuts in and says, "Nonsense, dear boy. You filled my Alice's eyes with light these past weeks, and it would be our pleasure to have you come and celebrate my wife's life with us." Edgar cannot believe the friendliness of this complete stranger, and he didn't even meet Alice's mother. He is just so honoured. "Well, thank you, that would be lovely. It would be marvellous to hear all about the wonderful woman who raised such a kind lady such as Alice." Edgar spends the day meeting people, hearing wonderful stories about Mary, who was so loved by the village. He sees Eleanor, the guest house owner, and she gives him a smile. Even Alice's aunt is seen laughing at one point. Edgar muses to Alice how sad it is as to why all these people have come together, but how comforting it is to know how loved Mary was. There are lots of drinks and food flowing all day, and after dark is when Edgar tells Alice he should be going and leaving her to spend some time with her father. Alice tells Edgar how wonderful it was to have him there, and she wasn't sure how she'd cope with the day if he hadn't have come. Edgar's not entirely sure he made much of a difference, but is glad that he had a purpose. He's pleased he put his own thoughts aside and came to support Alice at this time. And he feels that he's made some wonderful friends, which is really not like him at all, always having kept himself to himself apart from in love. Before he leaves, Alice hands him a little wicker basket with some leftover sandwiches and pastries in. She says she won't be at work tomorrow as she has some final things to do following the funeral, but she'll see him the next day, and this should keep him going until she sees him again. He heads home. Jupiter is waiting for him on the windowsill. They share a pork pie. Edgar writes all about the day he's had and all about Virginia's sepulchre by the sea, how he loves to lie down by it and imagine he is lying with his love. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I always say there's nothing quite like a funeral to remember all the good times with someone and see family that you haven't seen for a little while. So this is what I've made today. So we've got an envelope today. So I've put some black lace down the side just because of funerals and black. And then we've got Jupiter there on top of a gravestone, and that could be Alice's mum's grave or it could be Virginia's. And here's the churchyard graveyard here, and just some of the flowers that came from the funeral. And then I just put the words tomb, grave, coffin there with some Release the Crafting words. And then a little bit of lace along here just to offset the black with a bit of sort of cream. And then in the background here we've got some of the words of Annabel Lee. And then let's pull this down. The envelope flips up, and then we've got in here the letter from Alice. It says, Edgar, please will you accompany me today at my mother's funeral? Meet me at the church at 10 a.m, Alice. And we've got the quote here. And then we've just got some more Release the Crafting words. Poe quote here that says, I was never really insane except upon occasions when my heart was touched, because I really feel like Edgar's heart has been touched by his trip and by Alice and everyone making him feel so welcome. Got the hat that he managed to find to wear, and then I've put this bell here to signify the church bells, and I know this bell was probably intended for Lenore when the bell tolls, but I didn't use it that day, so I've found a place for it here. I've got the number 18 down here because it's the 18th day, and then just a sticker in the background of perhaps this was Alice's mother out and about. And then we've got a seraph there, so really that could be Annabel Lee, Virginia, because it was a love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted of her and me. And that is my make for today. So I hope you enjoyed that. I'll be back tomorrow for day 19, and we will see how Edgar is getting on. He's got to have a day without any sort of Alice encounters, so we'll see how he goes with that. But I will be back again tomorrow, and in the meantime, have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.